a place to hide when we knew we should, where we planned to take on the world with all that's tried, with all that's life. We learned to love, we learned to cry, we learned if you roll then you give up, did they hold you down long enough until you knew what you were made of? Did you dance in the middle of the floor on a Saturday night? Did you try to take on the world? Did you leave me behind? I wait on the same sidewalk that we grew up, 'cause I know you always walk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you've been enjoying the festival. I have the great pleasure of introducing Alexandre Franchi to you. He is the filmmaker for the film Happy Face. Welcome, Alexandre.
Hi.
Hi. So, Happy Face. It's a very powerful film, beautiful film, emotional film. My first sort of thought when I finished it was, where did this story come from? How did you come to this story, and why did you want to make this film? Why was it important for you to make this film? Me?
Yeah, I'm just. I have a little lag in between what I hear and what I see. So I should base myself on the Facebook or the Zoom. Okay.
So basically, Alexandre, so if you just concentrate, if you focus on the Zoom call,
I'm good. Yeah.
And then don't focus on the because what we're doing, audience, just everybody watching. So we've got things that are live on YouTube, because then we can receive all of your questions and your input. And then Alexandre and I are also having a one-on-one conversation on Zoom. So we'll sort of focus on that. So I'll re-ask the question. When I saw the film, it just I wanted to know how this all started, why you wanted to tell this story.
Oh yeah, well, it's partly autobiographical, because my mom had cancer when I was a kid, and she worked in the cosmetics industry. She used to work for Christian Dior and Lancôme. So she worked in the beauty industry, and she basically spent all of her life defining herself by her makeup, her looks, her appearance. And when the disease hit and then the treatment started, and she lost her hair, she lost her breast, it was breast cancer, I saw firsthand as a kid the effects it had on her sense of self. And so basically, she had defined her womanhood on her appearance, and the appearance was going away. Hence, the womanhood also was going away. And so, that struggle I witnessed firsthand, and I think that was the seed for Happy Face. And then later on, as I grew up as a teenager, the disease came back, as these things often might do. And then as a teenager, even if our parents are healthy, we're kind of ashamed of our parents when we're teenagers. And I had that. Plus, there was a sickness, so it was that thing of bringing friends home, not bringing friends home, having to take care of my mom. And so basically the story of Stan and Augustine, which is the son and the mom in the film in Happy Face, is basically the story of me and my mother, Jeannette. And then when I brought in people with facial differences or disfigured people, I think it came out as a that movie took a long time to write, like probably 10, 15 years, because it kept gestating and it kept evolving as I evolved. And my mom passed away when I was like 23. So I think after grieving, the idea of the film came. And I think I had a kind of a frustration or a rebelliousness vis-a-vis that kind of beauty culture, that kind of like perfect culture we see, you know, that's gotten worse in the media because, you know, this happened in the 90s. And I wanted to shock people and basically tell them to fuck off and basically show faces that were different or shocking, the faces we don't really dare to look at. When we go to the store and we see somebody, we kind of look and we turn away. I wanted to put this in people's faces to confront them vis-a-vis their own biases, force them to look, cater to their voyeurism as well. And ultimately, and this is what I discovered in the casting process and the rehearsal process, ultimately basically change the people's perceptions vis-a-vis somebody who really looks different. Because then after a while we get used to it. After 7-10 minutes in the film, we're like, okay, these people, they're not victims or angels because they look different. They're just like regular people with their qualities and their flaws, you know? They could be great and they could be assholes or idiots, which they are in the movie. The story was a long process of grieving for my mom's illness and her death, and also my take on my own superficiality, my own kind of like guilt vis-a-vis having been ashamed of my mom when she was undergoing treatments. And naturally, I mean, she didn't have any facial scars, but it was just like the discoloration of the face, the loss of hair, the radiation, because then the cancer came back into brain tumors. So I think it was also for the way the film was also a cathartic project for me to kind of become less superficial, to kind of tame that kind of fear of the other that looks different. And my way of doing it is not by saying the right thing or being politically correct. My way of doing it is like staring at it in the face, or the problem or the person, and saying, okay, well, what can I say? What could we do? Like, could I joke about your face? Like, how do you joke about your face? Like, ask the tough questions and basically have a dialogue. And it started out like that. And that process with the actors really made the film evolve into what it is today. My script was theoretical at first, obviously.
How did you rehearse and work with the actors in that space of sort of the morbid fascination with difference and physical deformity, who we are, and defines what we look like, defines who we are?
How did I work with them? You mean concretely or vis-a-vis that topic you just mentioned?
Yeah, vis-a-vis that topic in preparation. Like, how did you prepare the actors?
Well, some of them were performers. One of them is a hip hop artist, another one is a stand-up comedian, and others were non-actors.
Yeah.
Like no training, no. But they all had charisma. They all have charisma. So what we did, and I had the help of an acting coach from Toronto, Anna McKay Smith. And she helped me structure the rehearsals. And what we did is I had everybody, myself included, take a sheet of paper, and we had to write down all the nasty stuff people have told us in our lives, all the insults we've received, you know. And then basically we all wrote that, and then I had everybody read that to the group, you know. And then I had us and I had them write all the nasty stuff we say to ourselves, they say to themselves, and then read it to the group. And then we realized that what we say to ourselves is worse than what people say to us sometimes. And then we moved on to doing Shakespearean insults, where we kind of like take meaningless insults from the Shakespeare days, and we basically stand 2 inches from each other and yell at each other and like with spittle in our face. You know, this was pre-COVID, so we were able to spittle in each other's faces. And basically we were yelling insults at each other that didn't mean anything. And then we merged everything. We actually decided to like have this kind of like one-on-one duo with they throw insults at each other, real insults, like E.R. Ruse, who plays Jocko, the African-American actor who comes from South Central Los Angeles, so like a rough neighborhood. He was like, well, if we do this, we're going to have to use the N-word. Are you comfortable with this? You know, and so we basically went with every taboo and just broke it down. And ultimately, then it became, after 3-4 days of this, it was just, there was no taboo, there was no sensitive topic, or if it was sensitive, we just discuss it. And then I think the feeling of trust started happening, and then they were okay for everything, right? Because I don't know, we just went through that, and that was the first step. And then we workshopped the heavy duty scenes, And because a lot of them, some of my actors were not very good, they had no training in learning lines, and doing it, naturally. There was a lot of improv, so we did a lot of improvisation on the scene and workshopping, kind of like improvising the scene, and we did that on the day of shooting as well, which is a bit tough.
Did you shoot the improv?
Not in the rehearsals, although I filmed it to document it. But on the day, we blocked the scene, and then I would improv it, and then after a couple of takes, then we'd start shooting, and we'd shoot 4 or 5 takes of improv and modify it until the magic would happen, and then we'd get something. And I'd focus on the center of the scene. I'd focus on the emotional core, like the conflict. And once I had it, I was like, okay, now that's good. That's what we want. So then we'd film the beginning and the ending of the scene, to get there. But we'd always focus on the heart of the conflict in each scene, or the moment where they actually lose their shit, or lose their mind in the movie, and they flip out and there's big revelations, because it had to feel real, and I think it does.
No, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
How did you develop the visual language with your cinematographer?
Claudine Sauvé is my cinematographer, and she did most of my films. I didn't develop the visual language because she did the visual language. I was so swamped by co-producing it, co-writing the film. And then I was so stressed out because it was a story about my mom and my youth, and I didn't want to screw it up. And it was like a big ship for me, like a big, huge ship that I didn't want to steer in the wrong direction, that I really had a lot of anxiety, and I was really focusing on the emotional continuity of the acting between each scene and the emotional crescendo. That shot structure, planning for my shots, all the stuff that I could teach, or I study, or I do elsewhere, that went out the window. All my energy was focused on just getting the emotional continuity. Now, Claudine took care of the look. We wanted to have a bit of a retro, timeless, early 90s look.
Yeah.
We went handheld because of the non-actor improv status. We couldn't start planning like big dolly shots and things like this.
No.
Because it was more of getting the emotion, getting the rawness of it. And so I guess that was the visual storytelling. It was not very elaborate for me. I think Claudine did it all, and we kind of made the film in the editing with that, with the sound and everything. So that was for me, honestly, that was my failing as a director for this film, was the visual storytelling, the mise en scène, basically my job.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get the emotional continuity, the tone, like the justness of feeling first.
I mean, sort of the theme, the loneliness, and abandoning the person that needs him the most at the time that he needs her the most, the fear playing into it all, and then sort of the tremendous grief. All of those things are so beautifully articulated in your film.
Thank you.
But it's sort of like a storm, like it's this sort of everything's brewing all at the same time. How was that for you, knowing that you said you felt a huge responsibility going on set every day and sort of being in your own story? What's that like as a filmmaker?
I'll touch on that question. It's true that what we try to do with my co-writer Joël Bourjoli is we try to have all these, like, juggling many balls up in the air with all the characters, so that hopefully at one point it all comes together. Mm-hmm. That for me is one of the joys of filmmaking, writing or directing, because they go hand in hand in this case. It's that feeling of like you get all these things, and at one point it all friggin' connects, and you're like, oh my god, like I get a kick out of that. So that's just getting a kick out of it. That I love doing that. So, and I want to do it better with my next films.
Well, you did it beautifully with this film.
Oh, well, thanks. Thank you. And as for and then I forgot the question. The question was going on the set yourself. My story. Yeah.
Reliving it all the time.
You know what? It was actually a weird hindrance, because what I had lived as a 5-year-old, 14-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, my mom was so intense, particularly at the time of her death, that when I wrote it, after a while, and the people were acting it, for me, it felt fake and like a pastiche. And so, as much as I had an easy time directing my facially different actors when it was their story, and I felt it, and I was like, wow, it's great. I feel the emotion. Whenever it was the son and the mother, I couldn't feel anything. So I had to rely on my DP, my script supervisor, my AD, who are great friends, and all women too. And so, which was good for the sensibility of that was perfect. Tonally, our crew was perfect, and I had to rely on them to see if it really worked, because for me, it was just the actor and the actress. Like, because it felt, I almost like it felt like I felt nothing doing it. Like, I feel no emotion when I watch the film and I see the scene between the kid and the mother. Zero.
Wow. I have a comment from Tanya Horek. She says, Happy Face is so successful at changing perceptions. It's such a striking, original, and remarkable performance. Would love to hear more about your casting process.
Well, thank you, Tanya. Yeah, I think that's what I found in festivals with audiences, and that's what I found with my crew when we were filming, and with myself. It changed us, filming the film, interacting with my actors. It changed the actors' lives. That's what they told me, but it also changed my life and the crew's. And same for the audiences that saw the film in festival. And as for the casting process, basically that was a tough one at first. We went to see associations that help people with facial differences, burn victim associations, craniofacial associations. And basically, we ended up talking to David Roach, who plays Otis, the older character. And he's a big activist, public speaker, stand-up comic, and mentor in that community. So he was interested in the film, though he had reservations. And then we went to an organization called About Face in Toronto. And basically what I did is I offered them 1 day of an acting course with Anna McKay-Smith, the acting coach. I was like, look, all I'm saying is let us give your members 1 day acting coach, because it improves self-esteem, confidence. It's great fun. At the end of the day, all I ask is that I talk about my project, and those who are interested, they can email me, but there's no strings attached. And we did an acting course. There were about 9, 10 of us, and we talked about our childhood. We did some acting exercise. We wrote our personal experiences, then we traded papers, and we acted each other's lives. And basically, that's how I found the core group. And then we contacted casting agencies as far as Toronto, Montreal, New York, LA, friends of friends, somebody who knew somebody. Somebody works on my father's street, who's a gardener, who plays a smaller part than, and he plays a bald guy. He's got face cancer in the movies, and he's at one point he hugs a participant and they exit. And I just went to speak to him. I just got his number. I went to speak to him, and he was reluctant because he was shy. And I spent hours and hours talking to him. I sent him my films. It took me months to convince him, and eventually, 3 weeks before shooting, he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do it." Okay, so then I rewrote a role for him, and we put him in. So the casting process was super hard, and then the word got out in the community, and all of a sudden, then I had people from the UK, from the US who wanted to be part of the film. People telling me their stories, sending me pictures of their surgeries, and it was super cool, but I just didn't have enough money or time to weave all that into a film and shoot all that. So at one point I had to cut it short. So yeah, the casting process was like that.
Did you find sort of diverting from, your written word to improv, did that seem natural, or was it a struggle?
Yeah, the written word to improv.
Your script, and then you said you ended up doing a lot of improv. How much of improv made it into the film?
A lot. I mean, you know this. You're a writer. You write stuff, and you've got an idea of how your scene should play out with the tension and the beats and the things and your dialogue, and then what's that? Sorry about that. And then My producer's calling me. Screw him. No, anyway, so basically, you have this, and I've done 2 features, and I still consider myself I'm lucky, but I still consider myself a beginner of the craft, and so you get your scene to be acted out, and people read it, and your scene sucks. My scene sucks. I'm like, oh man, it doesn't lift, it doesn't pop. So I'm like, I can't film it like that. So then, how about we try this? How about we try that? How about we move this? How about we squeeze this? And so I think the written word structurally was there. There were moments about cues, about certain pieces of info, about certain things that needed to be there. That didn't change. And then the improv was just when they were getting riled up and they had tension, then it was just their words, Or sometimes they'd say something and I go, oh, yeah, that was good. Like, let's. And another thing, when I wrote these characters naturally based out of things I read in articles, but then when I cast them, Maggie was supposed to be an anthropological PhD student. And that was very, very, I had a double PhD and had things with her parents. But then when I found Alison Midstoke to play Maggie, well, she's a model in New York City and she does a bit of acting. And so she's always dressed super sexy manner with high heels and tights and short dresses. And so I had to rewrite my Maggie. And so then I started finding out about the lives of my actors, and they were way more interesting than what I had written. So we're like, well, hell, I asked them permission, and we wove what part of their lives. Like Cindy, who plays Buck, the woman with all the pimples, neurofibromatosis, she had big issues with her mom, who had a tyrannical relationship with her. I mean, who was really tyrannical with her and bullied her. And I think that was their big thing. And whenever she talked about her mom, she'd cry. And I said, well, let's make it about that. And her goal in the film was to say stuff to her mom that she wouldn't dare to say in real life. So when she met the actress playing her mom, she was all nervous. And so for her, it was easy to get emotion because she never had a loving mom. So I would ask Otis, David Roche, sitting next to her in the workshop. And after a take, I say, okay, when she's going to say this word, just give her a little caress on the back. Just give her a little hug, like out of the blue, And I had worked out with my actors that whatever I talk, whatever happens, they should still stay in the zone. They should never look and think of cut. Like they're always in the story. And basically, he would rub her back or give her a little nudge, and I knew she needed that physical contact so much, and then she would start crying. And I had worked that stuff out with her. It wasn't a surprise. And we'd get emotion like this. So I told them beforehand in rehearsal, I said, guys, some of you I'm gonna trick. I'm gonna press on your buttons. Some of you we're gonna do it mechanically. So we kind of worked out with each of them what was our little toolkit, what were our common mental references. And so we worked through the script, and when it didn't lift, the written word, then we tried to improv and bring in something. And sometimes it's just like say something goofy. At one point, they're like, Rodi pizza, Rodi, Boboni. But at one point in the scene, they want to go to the pizza place towards the end, and you just had this weird little montage. I mean, that stuff came on the spur of the moment, because what I really like about filmmaking, and which is counterintuitive, is that filmmaking is very expensive and takes a lot of time and everything needs to be planned. But what I like is the immediacy of it. It's like as if you're molding clay and it's taking shape live. And so I really love to have that freedom on the set to be like, we're shooting an indoor scene. It's nice out. My DP, Claudine's like, Alex, it's nice out. There's like it's raining. It's like, we actually redid a whole scene because it started raining. Like at the end when they're all splitting up at the end of the film. And took all the actors out and we did it under the pouring rain and they were soaked and the makeup was running and we redid it just because it was cool, it felt right.
So for how long did it take you from the script, I'm just looking at my dog panting in the heat, from the script to locking picture and finishing the film? What was the length of time and what was the budget?
You mean, okay, sorry, from the script, the beginning of the script?
From when you started, well, I know it took you 10 or 12 years, but when you finished the script, the shooting script, from the shooting script to how many days did you shoot?
Okay. So we shot for 22 days. The budget, I think, was around $900,000 cash. With then you get freebies and you get like discounts. so it adds up. But like the real cash we got from tax credits and telefilm and the Quebec Arts Council was about $900,000, and the union discounts. Shot it over 22 days. It took me years to finance because the funders thought the character Stan was not likable, that I was that he was abusing these people, that he was manipulating them. I remember reading comments that because I was not disfigured, I couldn't really do a film about these people because I was appropriating their story. So we had a little bit of a struggle with that at times, and at other times the story wasn't ready. So I say by the time we got the shooting script to the financing, once we got the financing, it took about a year and a half. Once we had the money, and then we, and I started casting, it was about 6-8 months of casting. So yeah, about a year and a half. The editing took a long time. We didn't edit in 3 months. We edited in 5 months. We took like 20, 25 weeks. Like it was a job to edit just to get the right performances. Because we kept the camera rolling a lot.
We had a lot of footage.
Yeah, and we had to some of these characters like really fine-tune them in the edit to make them act perfectly well, and we'll keep the magic because we keep the good stuff. And again, what I struggled the most at the end in the editing was the Stan and his mom, was a structure between the kid and his mom, because I couldn't have a perspective on it, and that was strange. So 22 days, 900,000, about a year and a half, 15 years writing, dropping the project, picking it up again. It was supposed to be a short film at the Canadian Film Centre years ago when I met Shirley. So that was 2002 that the idea came. And what gave me the idea was funny. It was Greg Klinkew. I don't know if you know of him, a producer. At the time, Greg was obese. And I pitched this story. I got out of the meeting after, and I got turned down because it was, I don't know, too wacky. It was a short film. And I remember Greg ran out of the meeting, ran up the stairs, and he says, "You got to fucking do this film, Alex. You got to do it. You got to make it a feature. You've got to do it." And the fact that it was about people that looked different and were marginalized, and this guy who was really overweight, telling me this gave me the courage, I was like, okay, I'm onto something. I was like, when all the quote unquote normal looking people were saying, no, there's this wrong, this, and the person that's mostly concerned by this, I mean, for me, that's how I interpreted it. I mean, I know he likes horror movies and he likes freaky stuff, Greg, so that too, but it really encouraged me, and he gave me the spark to keep going. Just this one word, this one sentence he said in a corridor. And so thanks, Greg. Sorry, I yap a lot, I talk a lot.
No, it's fantastic. So what really ultimately want people to take away from the film? Like, I know people, take away whatever they relate to, but what's the most important thing you want people to hear?
Well, it's true, as filmmakers, we got to figure out that stuff. I don't know what we want people to take away from our film. I mean, there's the message that I think somebody said, I think it was Tanya in the comments that you quoted, that it changed people. I think that happened, I figured that out as I was doing the film. And I started seeing it in festivals, and some people would come up to me and cry, or at the Q&A would say, oh, my sister had cancer. I didn't see her for 2 years because I was kind of awkward about it. And then that's when I started hearing that. So the people started, that it changed some of them. So that was really a great thing. Originally, I did the film to fix myself. But what I wanted to do with this film is I wanted to, for me, it was I wanted to take the audience at one point and have the audience not know where they're headed. Often when I watch films in this day and age, films that are really well crafted, people that craft these films that have way more skill than I do, but you always know what kind of film it's going to be. You watch a drama, you watch a comedy, you watch a coming of age story, a feel good story, a thing about like resilience. Emotionally the notes it's going to hit, and you know where it's going to go. And that's not the films that I like. I like films where you sit somewhere and at one point, a third of the way in, halfway in, you're like, where the hell is this going? You're hooked, and you're like, man, I don't even know where this is going to land. And then you're kind of scared, actually. And that's what I wanted to do with this film. And I wanted to embark people in this weird thing about the Dungeons and Dragons and the quest with the figurines and the fact that he compares them to monsters. And he's got this whole mythical thing playing in his head with his mom at the end with the music. I wanted to take people on that kind of journey because as a kid, I took refuge in fantasy worlds and Dungeons and Dragons and chivalrous stories just as a means to have heroes and be a hero because I couldn't be one in real life because I was too young and ill-equipped for what was happening. So I think my goal was to take people through that trip so that at the end they're like, holy smokes, like they're in awe of the rawness of the emotion or the conclusion of it. So I succeed at times, not always in this film. Yeah, I mean, basically, that's what I strive for with every film, and you want to nail it. You want to make it better every time, like that thing. And that's what I love about great filmmakers. There's some great films that you don't know where it's going, and at the end, it just blows your mind in one way or another. So that's what I try to do. The human message. The human message. Sorry. Yeah, the human message is this. And it was Anna, the acting coach. It's like, I didn't want to treat my actors. Normally we see this in movies now, particularly with all the movement about righting the wrongs of social injustice or discrimination. I find that stories are always treat the marginalized person as a victim or as an angel. Somebody really fragile or somebody that's got a heart and a soul of gold. And to me, humans are not like that. Humans are idiots and great. They're petty and they're generous. They're dicks and they're lovable. And regardless of what they look like or color of skin they have or physical disability, or I don't know. So I think that came out in the acting process. And that was a revelation we had with the acting coach and with the actors. And it made us look past the face. It was like, no, it's not about the face. Like these people are idiots at times. And like at the end, Jocko, if something's wrong with his ex-wife, it's not because of his face. And I think that was something that by transcending that, the appearance, then we get to the heart of human nature. And I think that's the best way to bridge all that. That's when you're able to interact with people as equals. You've talked about the hard topics and then you're past that. It's not about race or face, or it's just about basic human frailties and fragilities that we all share. Not playing holier than thou, Sorry, go ahead.
With Happy Face, to me, it's about what we look like is not who we are, and the sort of attachment to beauty is really only truly skin deep, and we are so complicated. But I wanted to thank you very much for sharing your film with our audience, and I certainly loved watching it. And it was really a pleasure to speaking with you today. So I hope to see your next film soon.
Oh yeah, I'm working on it. The sequel.
The sequel. Well, I'm going to go for a swim, or I'm going to pass out.
I hear you. Well, thanks, Phyllis. Thanks, guys, girls, for listening and for the comments.
Thanks so much. It was.
And thank you, Wingbush Film Festival.
Took us further than any car could. A place to hide when we knew we should. Where we planned to take on the world with all its strength, with all its life.